Boker Tov. Today's daf yomi is dedicated to a shmira for Am Yisrael, Yeshua for the Chayalim, a shmira for the hostages, and the Chayalim, Hatzalah for the Shvuyim. So the daf yomi we're going to start. Today's daf yomi is Bava Metzia Nun Gimel 53, but we're going to start on Nun Beis, 5 lines from the bottom. As the Gemara tells us, Gufa, it's almost like the Gemara is going on a tangent talking about Meiser Sheni. What's Meiser Sheni? Meiser Sheni is the idea that there's this tithe that Meiser Sheni is in the first, second, and the fourth, fifth years of the 7 year cycle. You have to take, after you give a tithe to the Kohen, to the Levi, you have to bring a tithe, take a 10% and bring it up to Yerushalayim to eat it. Now, but this, if it's too much to bring, you're allowed to redeem it onto a coin. So now, in that context, it has to be a coin. It can't be just a piece of metal. It can't be an asimon. It has to be an actual coin. So we learned, Gufa says Chizkiah, we had discussed yesterday, Chizkiah said, Meiser Sheni she'ein bo shava pruta, Meiser Sheni that is not worth a penny, and you want to redeem it. So Amar hu v'chum shom l'chol ha'amos harishonos. And what you could do is, since it has to be equal to a penny, but it's not enough for it to be redeemed, so you could take it, and now if you redeem the Meiser Sheni yourself, you have to add on a fifth to the redemption. So that and the 1/5 can be added on to the initial money that you had already redeemed. If a person can't be exact with Meiser Sheni money, since you can't be exact, you add on a little bit when you redeem it. So now if you have some extra Meiser Sheni that's less than a pruta, you put it on, you redeem it onto that other coin. So Gemara challenges this idea that Chizkiah just said. The Gemara challenges this. It says, Meitzaveh, we have a contradiction. It says in the Mishnah in Bikurim, Ha-truma ha-bikurim chayav noem misa, that if a person who's not a Kohen eats truma or bikurim, he's going to be liable for death. The chomish, and you're liable, and not only that, if you eat it accidentally, you have to pay back the Kohen the value of what you took, plus an extra fifth. Ve'asurim, we're on the top of 53a, ve'asurim uzarim. And you're not allowed, if you're non-Kohen, you're not allowed to eat it. So, ve'hein nechse Kohen. And these are going to be considered the value of the Kohen. They're the product of the Kohen. And so meaning to say that the Kohen can use it to betroth a woman with them. He can be Mekadesh a woman. Unlike Meiser, which we said is like Rabbi Meir said, that Meiser belongs to the temple, and so therefore you can't be Mekadesh a woman with it, and you can't betroth the woman with it. And if Truma falls into a mixture, an admixture, basically a mixture of Truma and non-Truma, the Truma is nullified if there's 100 times the value of the Truma. Mina milk is nullified if there's 60 times the amount, but Truma is nullified if there's 100 times the amount. And before you eat the truma, you have to wash your hands, because the hands are going to make something a second degree truma. So therefore, this is a rabbinic decree, and so therefore, second degree truma can make truma a third degree truma, and truma is something that can become a third degree truma, unlike regular food. This is one of the reasons why we wash our hands on Seder night without a bracha, is because of this idea. So you're supposed to wash your hands before eating the truma, fruit, because otherwise, if you don't wash your hands, it can make the truma into a third degree level of truma. And Va'erev shemesh, and after you become tummy for truma, you go to the mikvah, but you still can't eat the truma until the nightfall. You need the nightfall. Harei b'truma bikurim. All these laws apply to truma and bikurim. Masha ain't came from Meiser, but these laws do not apply to Meiser. Meiser is not as strict as Truma in this matter. So the Gemara asks the question, my Masha ain't came from Meiser. What does it mean when it's not the case with respect to Meiser? Doesn't it mean Lav Mikal the Meiser Batal Beruba? So doesn't this prove that Meiser, unlike Truma, which is nullified in 1 in 100, Meiser will be nullified just if there's a majority just if there's a majority that can overrule the Meiser that's there, and so therefore in Misa the Chizkiah, and if you have the position of Chizkiah that says that it can be and if you have Chizkiya's position, Vim Isa de Chizkiya, and if you have the position of Chizkiya that even Meiser that's not worth a value, you can redeem it by just deconsecrating it onto something else. And why do we say Meiser will be nullified in the case of where there's a majority that overrules it or overpowers it? Why would we say that works? Fits into the concept of davar sheyeshel matir, and that since you have a way of redeeming the meiser, it's something that can eventually be allowed. And we have a principle throughout Shas, starting in Beit Sagimon Beis, that called davar sheyeshel matir, and that anything that will eventually be allowed, I feel the eleful battle. The laws of nullification don't apply to something that will eventually become permitted. So the example there is an egg that's born on Shabbos is muktzah. So therefore, well, we say it's not going to be nullified because that time at nightfall it's going to be permitted. And so therefore, since at nightfall it's going to be permitted, we're going to say Rashi's explanation is why you didn't now using the principles of nullification. So to use it, just wait till tonight and they'll be permitted. Ran gives a different explanation. Rav says that the principles of nullification only apply when you have two opposites, but when they're both the same type of genre, so to speak, then the principles of nullification don't apply. This is also relevant to us because we're talking on the eve of Pesach, and some people say it's a machokes. Do we say chametz is considered a davar sheyesh lo matir, and that's the reason why it's not nullified because it's something that will eventually be permitted. But anyways, why does Chizkiah say? Why does our Mishnah say that Meiser implies that Meiser be nullified a majority when Chizkiah says it can easily be redeemed? And so if that's the case, it seems to be like Chizkiah is contradicting our Mishnah. So the Gemara says, first of all, why do you assume that our Mishnah is saying that Meiser be nullified a majority? Maybe our Mishnah is saying the Meiser can never be redeemed because you had drawn an implication Truma is 1 in 100, which you said implies Meiser is just the majority. I mean, how do we know that's the case? The Masha ain't came at Meiser, the Batal Baroba. How do you know that that's the case? That when it says that it's not Meiser, that it's nullified in a majority? Dilma, maybe what it means is, well, Batal Klal, maybe it means it's not nullified at all. Maybe that's the implication. Maybe it's the opposite direction. Truma is nullified 100, but maybe Meiser is not nullified at all. The Gemara says, no, don't say this. The Gabe Truma, because with respect to Truma, we say Chumrei de Truma Katani, Huay de Truma lo Katani. Because by Truma, we're saying the stringencies of Truma versus Meiser, not the leniencies. So Truma is 1 in 100, so Meiser is more lenient than that. So don't say it's not nullified at all. Gemara says, Katani, but don't we have a case where Truma is more strict? Which Truma is more lenient, that unlike Meiser, because you say that it's the possession of the Kohen, and so therefore he can be Mekadesh with it. Unlike Meiser, which is the possession of the temple, Valkatani, they nechse Kohen. They are the possession of the Kohen, so therefore that's more lenient. Truma is more lenient than the Meiser. Gemara says, don't say that. The Tanya Behedya, it states explicitly. We're in the middle of 53A. We're in the middle of 53A. Don't say that because it states explicitly. Meiser Sheni Batal Baruba. So meaning to say, don't try and argue that Meiser Sheni is never nullified at all, because it says we have a different price. It says explicitly Meiser Sheni is nullified in a simple majority. But Eza Meiser Sheni Amru, and which Meiser Sheni are they saying? They saying this about? We're saying this about Meiser Sheni She'en Bo Shava Pruta V'Shenichnas LeYerushalayim V'Yatza. And we're talking about a case where Meiser Sheni that's not worth a penny, and it went into Jerusalem and it left Jerusalem. We're going to come back to that phrase. And if Chizkiah is correct that you could simply redeem the Meiser Sheni, why do you say it's nullified in a majority? Why don't you just deconsecrate it onto the initial Meiser that you have deconsecrated it? So therefore, this is a question against Chizkiah. So the Gemara says, no, we're talking about a case, Duo Parak. You never redeem Meiser Sheni. So you can't use Chizkiah's solution because we don't have any other Meiser Sheni for that this man has already redeemed. The Gemara says, well, that's not a good answer. V'nesi Meiser, the Islave and its Darfino, bring other produce that he needs to tithe, combine it together, and then once he does that, when he brings other Meisers and he'll combine it together, and then he'll be able to redeem it. Why would you say you can't nullify it? Why do you say it's nullified a majority when we have this simple solution? Gemara says no. No, that you can't combine rabbinic meiser and biblical meiser. We can't combine them because basically, what we're saying here is that the Araisa D'Rabbanan lo mitztarfi, that the meiser that was not mixed in chulin at all, that's just the meiser that was not mixed at all with the chulin, that is going to be a biblical obligation. And meiser is only the meiser that was already nullified in the majority. That's going to be only rabbinic obligation. And so therefore you're going to bring meiser that was never tithed at all, and you want to combine it with this meiser, which could be nullified in majority, which is just a rabbinic obligation to tithe. You can't combine the two. So the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, v'nesi demai, so bring demai. Remember, we talked about what's demai. We talked about this many times. Demai is the produce you get from the Am Haaretz, where rabbinically we say it wasn't tithed. Demai, what is it? So therefore, that's the case. So since rabbinically we're going to say it wasn't tithed, so therefore it's only a rabbinic obligation to tithe. Then why don't we take this meiser, which has been nullified by majority, and redeem it in this way because they're both rabbinic? The Gemara says, no, we're not going to allow you to do that. Because we're concerned that maybe if you bring the demai, then you're going to come and bring also the tithes that are obligatory, that are certainly need to be tithed, the produce that's never been tithed. Gemara says, okay, I'll give you a different solution. Why don't we bring 2 coins? And then we'll just take meiser and redeem on it a 1.5. You redeem meiser valued at 1.5. High, and then take this one that should have been nullified in the majority and redeem it onto the other half. So the Gemara says, no, you can't work like that. Misavras pruto mersa tafsa shtei pruta. Misavras, do you really think pruto mersa tafsa shtei prutos? Do you really think that if there's a pruta mersa of meiser, that it's going to be redeemed by the 2 prutos? That's not how it works. Well, pruta tafsa pruta, and ani pruta lo tafsa. That 1 pruta of meiser is redeemed by 1 pruta of a coin, and the other half of a pruta of the meiser lo tafsa. It's not at all redeemed. And hadar havile the arise of the rabbanon, the rise of the rabbanon will mitzdarfi. And so therefore we have one biblical one that's not redeemed at all, and then it's the rabbinic, which was nullified biblically speaking, and that therefore they're not going to combine. So the Gemara gives another approach. So the Gemara says, I'll tell you how you can redeem this. Naisi Easter, bring a coin that's an Easter, and then you could deconsecrate the Meiser Sheni onto this Easter. And then after you do that, you bring a Easter, redeem the Meiser Sheni onto it, and then redeem the Meiser Sheni onto that remaining Easter. The Gemara says, no, we're not going to allow that. Because then maybe you're going to do the same thing with 2 prutos, and then you're going to have a deraisa and a derabbanan again. So therefore, the Gemara says that's why this is the proof against that's. So now we've said, basically in conclusion, we've said that Chizkiah had said that you could redeem it this way. We tried to bring a question against Chizkiah from this fact that this Mishnah says that Meiser can be nullified in a simple majority, and isn't that a proof against Chizkiah? We said it's not a proof against Chizkiah. So now the Gemara says, let's look at the rest of that brayso, so that the brayso had said that that the way in which Meiser Sheni is going to be nullified in majority is if it was Shenichnas Yerushalayim v'Yatzef, if it entered in Jerusalem and then departed. So the Gemara says, why is this the case? Why is this the case that this is considered to be the case? Well, you had the V'naila. Why don't you bring it back into Jerusalem? Why don't you bring it back into Jerusalem and then just nullify it there? The Gemara says, so basically, why do we say this Meiser Sheni is considered like something that can't be redeemed and it's nullifying the majority, even though it's in Jerusalem and you can't redeem it? Now, what you could do is you could bring it back to Jerusalem and eat it there exactly how it is, mixed in with the chulin. And so there you would eat it in a permitted state. It's something that will be permitted. Why don't you bring it back into Jerusalem and then just eat it there? Why do you say it's not something that can be redeemed? Mar explains, Bishenitma. No, it became tamei. And so therefore, since it became tamei, you can't eat it in Jerusalem. So the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, V'nifrake, why can't you redeem it? Damar Abu Lazar, Minayel Meiser Sheni Shenitma Shapozin. So that even if Meiser Sheni was redeemed, became tamei, you could redeem it. Rabbi Lezer says that afilu b'Yerushalayim shenemar. How do we know that you're able to redeem it even in Jerusalem? Because it says kilo tuchal seiso. you're not able to say so. It means if you can't eat it, but you're able to redeem it, as it says. And how do we know that you're able to redeem it? Because it states, and so we see from here that even in a case where you can't eat it, where it's tamei, you can't eat it, you still are able to redeem it. And so therefore, you can't say that our price is talking about a case where it became tamei, because ma'aser sheni that became tamei is way that you could redeem it. And so therefore, why do we say it can't be? It's nullifying a majority when it's a simple way of redemption. So we're talking about a case. Our Bryce is talking about ela bilakuach because of ma'aser sheni. We're talking about fruits that were bought with the money of ma'aser sheni, and those fruits, not with ma'aser sheni itself, but fruits that were bought with the money of ma'aser sheni. And the law is that food that was bought with the money of ma'aser sheni cannot be redeemed again. Only the ma'aser sheni itself can be redeemed onto money, but fruit that was bought with the money of ma'aser sheni can't be redeemed. So the Gemara says, well, why? If it was bought with the money of ma'aser sheni, it could also be redeemed, because we learned in the Mishnah ma'aser sheni, ma'aser sheni. If something was bought with the money of ma'aser sheni, it can be redeemed. So the Gemara says, no, this is like Rabbi Yehuda, who says he covered that if food that was bought with the money of ma'aser sheni became tamei, it can't be redeemed, it has to be buried. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda, well, if it's Rabbi Yehuda, well, my area yatse, well, then we don't need it to have gone out of Jerusalem. Even if it's in Jerusalem, it became tamei, you can't eat it. Afil yatsa nami. And therefore the Gemara says, El oam, so we're talking about ma'aser sheni that's tahor. So what does it mean that it went out and it can't be redeemed anymore? Why can't it be redeemed? My yatsa. So what we're talking about a case is the Ma'aser Sheni didn't leave Jerusalem. We're talking about a case you got your Ma'aser Sheni, you went up to Jerusalem. It's the year 70, and right when you got up there, you redeemed it. You took your Ma'aser Sheni, and then nafal machitzos, that the walls of Jerusalem were destroyed, and now the Ma'aser Sheni can no longer be eaten there. It says you have to eat it. And so since it's Ma'aser, you can't eat it and you can't redeem it. What are you going to do with it? So that's what we're talking about. A very unique circumstance, but hopefully it was a one-time thing and it'll never happen again, because next time the temple will be rebuilt, it won't fall down. So the Gemara says, well, how can we say that as a result of the mechitzos falling, you're not going to be able to redeem it? V'amarava mechitza le'achol de'araisa mechitzas lekot de'rabanan. But didn't Rava say that the idea that you need walls in order to eat the ma'aser sheni in Jerusalem, that's biblical. But the idea that you need the walls in order to consider this to be before Hashem, that's a biblical law. But mechitzos lekot, that once you enter one time, then even if you go out, you're not allowed to redeem it. That's the Rabbanan. And so since the idea that the walls are absorbing it is rabbinic, ki gazer rabbanan ki isnu mechitzos. When did the rabbis make this decree that once it leaves Jerusalem, you can't eat it anymore? That's when there were walls. Ki isnu mechitzos lo gazer rabbanan. But since there are no walls, that you should be allowed to eat it once it leaves. Once there are no walls anymore. Gemara says lo plug rabbanan bein the isnu mechitzos bein the leisnu. The rabbis don't make a distinction between whether or not there are walls and whether or not there are walls. Once it goes into Jerusalem, you can only eat it if it's in the walls of Jerusalem. So the Gemara says, Rav Huna bar Yehuda Amar Rav Sheshes. So Gemara goes back to explain the question from earlier, that the first part of the Bryce, it says that Ma'aser Sheni, which is less than a Shav Pruta, less than a Pruta, is nullified in majority. And this is a question against Chizkiah, because Chizkiah would say you could be redeemed. So according to Chizkiah, it shouldn't be able to be nullified. So Rav Huna bar Yehuda says in the name of Rav Sheshes, first of all, the Bryce doesn't need to say that Ma'aser Sheni is canceled in the majority. It's really the Ma'aser Sheni is talking about one circumstance, meaning to say Ma'aser Sheni she'ein bo shava pruta v'nichnas l'Yerushalayim v'yatza. That's Ma'aser Sheni that's not worth a penny, and that Ma'aser Sheni entered into Jerusalem and then left. And the Brisa says therefore it's nullified in majority, because once it was inside the walls, you can't redeem it anymore. And therefore, even Chizkiah would say, under these circumstances, since it went into the walls and now it can no longer be redeemed, so therefore, and went out, you can't redeem it anymore. Even Chizkiah would say you can't redeem it. Amai, why? Why can't you go back and eat it? Because the nafal machitzos, you lost your opportunity. Go back and eat it there. You can't. You lost your opportunity, and so therefore we're going to say this Meiser Sheni can no longer be redeemed because it went in and the one went out, and the walls fell down. V'nifrike, why can't you redeem it? Amarava machitza le'achol de'araisa machitza le'klot rabbanon ki gazer rabbanon ki isnu machitzas k'esem machitzas lo gazer rabbanon. Why can't you redeem it? Gemara says lo plug rabbanon. The rabbis don't draw the distinction. Even though the walls fell down, you can't do it. So this guy lost his opportunity. He brought his Meiser Sheni into Yerushalayim. He says, "Oh, I'll eat it later. I'll eat it later. Don't worry about it. I'll go out. I'll eat it tomorrow." The walls fell down. You lost your opportunity. So why do we care if it's not worth a penny? Even if it's worth a penny, you still shouldn't be able to. It should still be majority. Let me buy. Come on, Gemara says, "Let me buy yeshbo the kaltan lay machitzos." Not only if it's worth a pruta, where the machitzos have absorbed it. But if it's not worth a pruta, I might have said low kalta lay machitzos. I might have said if it's not worth a pruta, the walls did not absorb it, and so therefore, since the walls did not absorb it. So since it's not worth a pruta, the walls did not absorb it. So I might have said since it's not worth a pruta, the walls did not absorb it, and so therefore it can be redeemed if it goes out. Kamashwan, we don't say that. Just like if it's worth a penny, if it goes in and goes out, and the walls came down, it can't be absorbed, and so therefore it's nullified. So too, if it wasn't worth a pruta. So now, what's the pekuach nefesh here?
The walls fell down. Starvation.
Oh, if you're starving, then it doesn't apply any of this. We're not talking about that case.
So that's a situation where
no, the walls fell down. The walls were breached much earlier. Okay, yeah. We're talking about in the future. Yeah. We're hoping it doesn't. So the Gemara says, how do we know now that you're not allowed to redeem this coin that was worth less than a pruta in a regular manner? Chizkiah said you have to bring it into a coin that was already absorbed. So the Gemara that already had some leftover, some less than the amount of Meiser Sheni. Tan Rabbanan. So how do we know this? Because it says, Vimga, all you gal ishmi ma'asro. That if a person wants to redeem his own Meiser Sheni, he needs to add a fifth. Mima'asro v'lo kol ma'asro. Meaning to say, from the Meiser Sheni, but not all of his Meiser Sheni. Meiser Sheni she'im bo shava pruta. Meaning to say that you can't redeem a Meiser Sheni that is not worth a pruta onto a regular coin. Rav Ami Amar Aimbo. Rav Ami says that we say Aimbo shava pruta, meaning that does not have. Meaning to say that the verse is saying that the Meiser itself is not shava pruta, but if the Meiser itself was a pruta, you could redeem it. Ravasi Amar Ein Bechum Show, that if the fifth that was added onto is not worth a pruta, meaning even to say if the Meiser itself was worth a pruta, but the extra fifth that you have to add on is not worth a pruta, you still can't redeem it onto a coin. Rabbi Yochanan says Ein Bo, Rish Lakish says Ein Bechum Show. So the Gemara challenges those who say that if it itself is not worth a pruta, it can't be redeemed. Meisvei Meiser Sheni Shein Bo Shava Pruta. So if it says explicitly in the Braisa, if the Meiser itself does not worth a pruta, then you could say it and its fifth is added on. Now, Bishlam makes sense according to the position. Says if the extra fifth is not worth a pruta, but I know the Tano Dayo, that why it says it's sufficient. The Alpha got to be day Eastbay, even though the Meiser itself has given the Chamusha Leka Shapir, but since the fifth itself doesn't have a pruta, can't redeem it. Why does it say use the word dayo? So Gemara says, indeed, it's a kasha. It's difficult. Okay, we'll stop here. But I want to say about the schedule. I'd like to do. It's very hard.